Okay, what's going on, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and we are in the Progressive War Room with Brook Hines. Brook, please say hi to the people.
Hey, I'm so
Yeah,
glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
no problem. So, Brook Hines is an award-winning advertising creative with 25 years of experience crafting communication strategies for candidates in office. Now, the Progressive War Room, like I love to say, this is the place where we get into the nitty-gritty of campaigning. You know, if you are someone who wants to run for office, this is the channel, this is the show for you to demystify all the behind the scenes stuff, all the things going on. I want you, and also for myself, because I'm curious, that I want to know all the integral things of how a campaign works. So the first thing I'm going to ask Brooke is, what do you do as a campaign consultant?
So, my area is in branding and marketing, and I work with other consultants who bring in uh, subject areas like data and fundraising and uh, pieces of the puzzle that aren't in my domain. Now, I've done probably every uh, uh, role on a campaign, from campaign management to field to some fundraising aspects, all of that. But what I'm really good at is the branding and the marketing aspects. So that encompasses uh, everything you want to do before you get started. You
Mm,
want your logo, you want your basic tagline, you want your walk cards, t-shirts, what's another important piece? Website, of course. Uh, yeah, there you go.
mhm.
And direct mail. Direct mail usually comes in a little bit later. And digital ads. Digital ads are very important, and also all of the digital assets that go along with any kind of um, social media presence. So, you want to make sure that your identity is consistent across all of these different channels, whether it's print, digital, or even video, because we're using a lot of video um, in digital advertising now too.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So now, do you ask other people, like, do you have a team that takes care of video, that takes care of photography? Like, how much do you do directly and how much do you outsource?
So I act as a lot of times. I act as a hub. Progression partnership suggests that I have this part of it, and I bring in other partners to make someone's campaign really come together. Generally, the first person who comes on is the data person, because they're the ones who are going to help the candidate identify their universe, write their landscape memo, determine what their win number is, and get their general feet on the ground in terms, and their heads around uh, how many voters they need to contact, how they're going to contact them, and how that's going to happen over the course of our countdown. And our countdown is uh, generally when vote by mail ballots drop, when absentee ballots drop, in Florida, especially because we have bigger vote by mail than a lot of other states.
Mm,
We generally count down from there. And so
okay.
we want to be winning when those ballots are dropping, so that when people get their ballots, they are ready to vote for our candidate. And then everything between, there's 45 days between the time people get their ballots in the mail and they can vote on election day. That is GOTV. So we're
Mm.
ballot chasing. We are determining who still has ballots. We're giving them calls. We're trying to engage them, and we're trying to get them to return those ballots.
So you said a number. I think you said the call number, or I forgot what number you said exactly. But like the vote number, what does that mean exactly?
A win
Win
number
number. There you go.
is
Yes. Mhm.
Your win number is very important in the beginning of the campaign, especially. So I'm working a couple of campaigns right now where this is where our win number has changed, and I
Mhm.
think this is going to be happening a lot in these off-year elections. So these are municipal elections that I'm
Mhm.
working right now in 2021, and then I think we're going to see the same thing in 2022
Okay.
because people got people that signed up for absentee ballots and vote by mail, they're going to stay on those lists to receive those ballots for a lot longer than just that one election cycle. Because of the pandemic, of course, a lot of people started getting absentee ballots who had never done that before. And now they're starting to get those ballots for these municipal races and for these off year elections that people aren't used to voting for or voting in yet.
Okay.
So we do some voter education where it's like we see you have a ballot. This might be a phone call, it might be a text. We see you have a ballot. We would just want you to know that this is a very important municipal election, and it's your opportunity to, at least in this particular election, it's your opportunity to change the nature of this particular city council. And this is an interesting race. This is the city council in Lake Worth, where Omari Hardy had the hot exchange with the mayor there, and so just about everybody in the community in the town realizes that there's a big problem in
Okay.
city council with that mayor, and it's a change election. So we're going. That's what we're doing, and so our win number changed. We thought we would see in this type of election. We thought we would see 3,500 votes cast, and it looks like we might get 4,500, maybe 5,000.
Okay.
So that's changed our approach
And
towards
that's
the end of the
because
race.
there was this thing that happened that caused a lot of excitement in the community. This
Yeah,
exchange. Very interesting. Okay, I want to ask you, if I am planning to run in 2022, when should I contact you?
it depends on the size of your race. If you're
Okay.
running for Congress, let's say, you definitely want to start early summer, like
Mhm.
Memorial Day on, and you want to get your team together, and you want to start getting your identity and your assets together. You're going to spend, and this is best case scenario, if it's a fairly big race, let's say like 30,000 voters, you want to start. You want to be hitting the ground running, absolutely running, at the first of the year in
Okay.
January,
Okay.
so that if it's a November election, you've got all of that time. But then
Okay.
you want to spend over the summer the year before, working with your team and fine tuning who you are and what your places in the campaign vis-a-vis the other candidates, vis-a-vis your opponents.
Mhm.
So taking your time, announcing early and taking your time can really work to your advantage.
Mhm.
But
Okay. Mhm.
that doesn't mean that you can't announce after the first of the year and ramp up really quickly if it's a smaller election.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this, because I've heard that in one of the strategies is you want to define your opponent, right? And especially if you're an incumbent, and you know what Obama did to Romney as far as the 47%, and making him out to be that rich person. So you're saying that you should announce and then take your time to define who you are. Is that dangerous if you're given time for the other person to kind of come up with your identity before your people, before your constituents can find out about you?
That's a real good question.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the time that you're spending working on your identity and getting your campaign together within your own team doesn't necessarily mean that you're yet going out with that identity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't launch your social media or any of your assets
Mm-hmm.
until after the first of the year, but you spend all of that time until the first of the year uh, using that identity to reach out to potential donors. You know, you want to go through everybody let's say you want to run for city commission. You want to reach out to everybody in your family, everybody who's on your Facebook list that you know from high school and so on, and say, hey, I know this is crazy, but I'm going to run for city commission, and I would really love your support. And if you could afford to toss me $20, that'd be great. So that first part is more you talking to the people you want to support you financially and the people that you want to support you as a volunteer. And then you go out with your message later on, like after the first of the year.
So at that point, should you have a website? So if a trend that I've noticed is people would announce and then they come out with their website and it's like just a splash page where you're asking for volunteers, you're asking for money, but it doesn't have your full website. So at the point where what you're just talking about, where you're calling people up, do you at least have that first beginnings of a web page, or not even a web page yet?
Absolutely. You want that landing page. So, because that's going to have either your Act Blue link or your antidote link that is going to enable you to take donations from people. And that's kind of another area too that's really good to get up and going sooner, because you've got reporting and you got to get your treasurer working right. You know, there's all of this compliance stuff that you want to have dialed in. But having that landing page allows you to start collecting names for volunteers, getting your volunteer list together, and getting your good donors together.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this because I have a very big pet peeve of mine that I'm curious what you think, but I'm going to move on. And basically, I'm going to ask you about issues page and when should you have the issues page, but we're going to come back to this. So the next question I want to ask you, money wise, now, of course, your services cost money. Now, should I come to you with a budget? Like, let's say I have $5,000. I'm going to go real grassroots. I have $500. I have $1,000. When should I talk to you? Maybe I need to have $5,000. When should I reach out to you? And how it works? Do I give you my budget and then you say, okay, with this budget, I can do this, this, and this? Or do you say, hey, I need a retainer of at least this amount of money? You don't have to tell me the exact amount, but this amount of money. Go ahead, Brooke. Tell me what you think about it.
So I'm the kind of consultant who is, I'm in this to help progressives. And I think that we need a strategy that wins locally. And in order to have a strategy that wins locally, you've got to have people like me who are willing to say, hey, I know you don't have enough to pay for a consultant right now, but I will work with you and get you to that place where you can start, bringing more people on and being efficient and smart about the ways that you spend that money. So this is something that I am working on right now with my clients, because they're in a smaller race, and it's important for them to be spending their budget in a way that is getting the most bang for their buck. You just don't have any room in these small campaigns to be wasting money in one 100%. Way or another.
Yeah, 100%. Very interesting. Okay. Now I want to ask you about the DCCC's Blacklist that happened a couple years ago. I believe the new chairman, Maloney, he doesn't agree with that, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And by the way, there was pushback on that, so that kind of got taken away. But at that time, I wonder what your position in that world was and how you felt about that, Brooke.
Oh, I was. So first of all, it was an indication of what the party was. That was a message that the party was sending to professionals in this field to scare us away from working with good progressives who wanted to challenge a blue dog who's sitting in a seat and let's say it's a bluer district where you really should have somebody who's further, uh, who's more progressive than who's already there. So they were trying to scare him off, and uh, that's a game that they play, but they really showed their cards there in terms of who they wanted to protect and who they weren't willing to protect, because there were some candidates that they weren't willing to protect. So in terms of my own, how it affected me personally, I, it wasn't a whole lot, because I don't work. Progressive candidates are not the candidates that are going to be DCCC candidates just automatically. Someone might slip through every now and then, but once they're working with the DCCC, they're getting a lot of consulting. They're being funneled to different kinds of consultants, and they're being funneled into different kinds of vendor relationships that would take them away from an independent consultant like myself.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. And also there's a difference between the DCCC's supported incumbents and challengers. So that's also a factor, right? As far as not only progressives and moderates and conservative Dems, they rarely do work with progressives, but if you're a progressive challenger, it's even more rare, right? I would think that they would spend money on you or try to help you out, right?
Right. Well, you would think. So one thing that happened in 2018, and let me know if this answers your question. One thing that happened in 2018, and I was working with a lefty candidate who was challenging a blue dog, and the party kind of stayed out of it. The party itself kind of stayed out of it. But what happened was all these independent expenditures came in. So you had no labels coming in and supporting the blue dog. And then you had all of these independent expenditures from PACs, political action committees that are associated with the party, but not specifically the D-Trip.
Gotcha. Interesting. That is, you're very right, because even like Emily's List, right? That's a factor also. So I want to ask you. I just thought of this question: what would you like to see in that case where you're in the trenches with somebody, a candidate, and they're getting a whole bunch of people coming in on the other side, on the challenger's side, Emily's List and no labels and all these people. What would you like to see? Like, so on our side, we have Our Revolution. We have, Justice Democrats have become more sticking to a small amount of candidates. So I'm not going to count them, but like there's a lot of chapters of Our Revolutions out there. There's Democratic Socialist that has chapters out there. What else is out there? And even what would you like to see from them, or do they not jump in the race, that from your experience? And also maybe media, like from the TYTs and the bigger progressive media. What would you like to see from these different organizations?
Okay, so the organizations first. I see it from where the campaigns that I've been involved with. I've seen DSA and I've seen Our Rev do amazing field work, and that field work can be door knocking, literature drops, and also phone banking. So I've seen them do amazing things in terms of pulling together people power to really energize a campaign, and that's amazing. And I've also seen recently, because we don't have enough, but I think we do have more independent progressive media like yourself that are very early on bringing these candidates onto YouTube and introducing them to a wider audience that they can fundraise from, or can help with volunteer tasks like working phone lists, doing phone banking, that type of thing. So, what I would like to see more of is I would love to see, okay, let's imagine we don't have to create a brand new organization. What I would like to see is a group like Justice Democrats commit themselves to local campaigns in a serious way. I would like to see Our Revolution have a little bit more resources, because Our Revolution's a little loosey-goosey, at least here in Florida. I'd like to see them have a little more resources.
And resources,
DSA,
you mean by what exactly you mean by resources?
So Our Rev here in Florida, at least in Central Florida, is a little ad hoc. And so, like, for instance, in Central Florida where I live, there's 2 or 3 different Our Revolution groups, and there could be a little bit better communication between the groups, and there could be a little bit more participation with the community into the groups. So our like I kind of contrast Our Revolution with DSA. DSA seems to have a lot more people on the ground, a lot more people power, to get out and knock doors and to get things done. Whereas Our Revolution has a little bit more of a top-down model that can be helpful for endorsements. It can be helpful for fundraising if you get that Our Rev endorsement. But at least here, I haven't seen the ability for that group to produce the labor that DSA is able to produce.
Okay, so I got a quick question from Alan Amberster from the chat. He said, "Why are there 3 different versions of the same organization in the same city?" So you're probably talking about like Our Revolution and DSA. I think I found, and I've been doing a lot of research on the civil rights movement because I watched Judas and the Black Messiah and the Black Panthers, and I've noticed that there's actually an advantage to having different types of organizations, right? Because so, for example, NAACP is a civil rights organization, but they're more into the establishment. They're more into try to go things and try to get along to get along, right? Because I found that a lot of Black Panthers like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, I think his name was Mark Clark, that also died. They were a part of NAACP before they found Black Panthers, and they liked Black Panthers a lot more because they were doing things in the community. They were more about doing things more radical. So I think there is an advantage to having 3 different organizations, because if you're a volunteer and you're a progressive that is passionate, you can kind of dabble in which organization is right for you. You know, one organization, like you just said, Our Revolution is more top down, then maybe a DSA chapter might be more local and active and more able to get things passed and get things organized a lot quicker than an organization that's getting their manpower from the top down. And I'm gonna let you speak on that real quick, and then we're gonna move on to other questions. Sorry, Brooke.
Yeah, that's a super good point, because not only do you have so if you've got 2 different Our Rev chapters in Central Florida, and it's going to break down in terms of neighborhoods. So we've got, I guess you could say, one on the north end of town and one on the south end of town. Very different kinds of communities. And it makes sense because those Our Rev groups speak to the communities closer to where they live. And, different groups have different focuses. So, so some might be more into mutual aid kind of things than electoral politics. And we need that. We absolutely need that. And while they're doing mutual aid, there's, leadership training and all different kinds of education to be done that is super important, and not specifically electoral work, but it needs to be done. And I'm glad that there's people doing it. Really.
Awesome. All right. So back to the questions here. So do you only work with progressives?
Yep. Yep. Pretty much.
Okay.
And that's that's due to the fact that
Mhm.
the people who I network with, the people who know me, the people who like
Mhm.
my work, all
Mhm.
I tend to know from progressive work,
Mhm.
and they're working with progressive candidates.
Yeah.
I've never really been approached by anyone that I needed to say, call this other person.
Mhm.
Not yet, I don't
Okay.
think.
Okay. Okay, interesting, interesting. What are the latest campaigns like? So I think you touched on it a little bit, but like, what are the some of the things that you're doing right now? Is it just that local? Or are you doing anything in the House or any Senate or anything like that? Just curious.
So 2021 springtime, in Florida at least, is is going to be municipal. So that's what's
Okay.
going to be available.
Okay.
So I've
Beautiful.
got these
Okay.
municipals that the election day is on March the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And then following after that, I'll have a little bit of break and focus on the media work that I do. And then starting around Memorial Day and over the summer, we'll start to get. I've got another municipal candidate that's coming around in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
and another larger campaign that, if it happens, could take a whole lot of time,
Gotcha.
just because of the size of the campaign.
Gotcha.
Um, but then, and I work with consultants in Georgia. I have in the past worked with consultants in Illinois and Kansas and Iowa. And I never quite know when someone's going to call up and say, "Hey, we need a set of assets," or "We need somebody to help this candidate with messaging a particular issue or framing a particular issue." So that kind of stuff can kind of happen ad hoc
A
too.
set of assets. What is an asset? Is that like I need a photography team? I need a film team to come over and do an ad. What does that mean exactly?
So assets are anything that we're going to use to promote the campaign. And for
Gotcha.
me, generally, that is any printed material. It could be direct mail. It could be digital ads. So anything
Mm-hmm.
in the digital realm, anything that is something that I'll create that the campaign then takes out and uses in their marketing and in their GOTV efforts.
Got you. How do you gauge the success of an ad, TV ad, or even a mailer to be more specific? Yeah. How do you gauge?
Well, TV is difficult, but
Mhm.
mailers are a little bit easier.
Okay.
So we use mailers in ballot chase
Mhm.
specifically, and when you do that, then are you have a more concrete set of metrics in order to gauge how efficient they are or how effective. So we'll start out with a universe, and let's just pull a number out. Let's say the universe is 1,000 people,
Mhm.
and we know that these 1,000 people are going to be returning ballots. One of the measures is of these people that we're contacting, and direct mail is never the only thing. It's going to be direct mail, nor door knocks,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
phone calls and
Mhm.
texts.
Okay.
Um, are they returning their ballots sooner? Are they? Are we able to cross them off our list of potential voters sooner than election day? So that's one measure, and then the final measure is always, uh, did they win, and did they win by how much did they win by?
Mhm.
This is super important. When did they win? Did they
Mhm.
win in VBMs, in vote by mails or
Okay.
absentee ballots? Did they win in early voting, or
Mhm.
did they win on election day? Because
Mm.
all of those
Interesting.
different groups have
Mm.
vastly different demographics. People
Mm.
who early vote tend to be uh, working women,
Mm.
particularly, and uh, communities of color. There's in Florida, there's has been some reluctance to use absentee ballots or vote by mail in traditionally African American communities and Latino communities. And so we've had to do a lot of work to raise the comfort level with using VBMs. And, I am very sympathetic to people having a reluctance to thinking or to feeling like, if I mail in this ballot, is it getting counted? Because it just seems to go somewhere and you don't know what happens. But the really cool thing about voting by mail is you can go to the supervisors of elections website, put in your name, and you can see if it's been counted. So I feel like it's more secure than voting day of.
Okay. I'm curious. I just thought about this question. Like, what do you think of when campaigns do what's called a shakeup, right? Where they have the campaign manager who runs it for like the first 4 months, and then like either whether the campaign is floundering and not being successful, or the campaign catches so much success that like the quote unquote more establishment, more like a bigger campaign. So for example, when Beto ran, I believe he ran for Senate like a while back. The first time he ran, he used 2 Bernie consultants that were helping him, and he started gaining traction, and then those got pushed to the side for more established. I think it was somebody, I can't remember the names, but it was like somebody that ran helped with Obama's campaign, and then you could tell the difference between the 2 shakeups, and he just went more corporate. Like, so what, I want you to speak on that for a little bit.
So in the instances where I've seen that happen, generally it's been the party stepping in and saying, we're going to help you out. We are going to give you a whole bunch of resources or money or people on the ground, whatever it is. And the deal is that you have to put this person in a primary position in your campaign. Sometimes they say, we want you to get rid of the campaign manager that you had. Sometimes they say, we're just going to add this person as a general contractor and you're going to work as a team. It just depends on what the relationships are between the two. But I've seen that happen a lot. And I think that when it happens like that, at least the last couple of times I've seen it happen like that, it's not been to the benefit of the candidate. It didn't have the outcome that they wanted it to have. And my feeling is that the consultants who were initially working with the candidate had the momentum and had this movement mentality, and that was working. And the party a lot of times wants to is a little, they don't get movement politics the way that they should. It could be a lot better, let's put it that way. So, and then the other thing I've seen is a candidate can flake, and a candidate can say, oh, I've decided for whatever reason I don't like this person that I hired, and 6 months before election day want to swap that person out for someone else. That's not necessarily good either. I mean, that's a whole history and a whole kind of world building, if you will, because this team has worked together and they've built a narrative and they have an identity, and then to switch somebody out and bring somebody back in creates a lot of mistrust. So you got to be careful, but it can be done. You can bring in new people and introduce them to the team, and there be incredible synergy. As a matter of fact, in the commission race that I'm working on now, there are a couple of I guess you'd call them super volunteers who have come in and been super helpful. I mean, just amazing. So it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, like I could imagine a progressive candidate, right, who's super grassroots, nobody believes in them, have nothing but volunteers and super volunteers, and then they get to that point where it's like, oh wow, this person could actually, like, say for example Charles Booker, right, and whoever is the campaign manager, if like a superstar campaign manager comes in there, like, so for example the person that helped Jamal Bowman you know, whoever his,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Chris Hayes' brother that helped him win. Like if he came in and say, "Hey, I can help you out. I would love to take over as a campaign manager." You know, the current campaign manager is like, "Hey, I would love for you to come take over. Let me be. I'll step aside. I'll still be involved. But you come in with all the resources, all the people. You know, you might get Bernie's endorsement. You might get AOC's endorsement. You know, if you could bring that, I could see somebody who's selfless. Like progressive, we're supposed to be selfless. We're supposed to be all about getting policy passed, Medicare for all these
Mm-hmm.
things. And I can see someone who really cares about that just kind of saying, okay, I'll step aside. I'll still be involved, but let's bring in this other person, right? You ever seen that side of thing happen before? Has that ever happened?
Absolutely. And,
Mm-hmm.
you never have enough. You never have
Mm-hmm.
enough people. You never have enough resources on a campaign. So, a really good campaign manager and a really good general consultant will work that out, and they'll find room for each other. Uh, and especially in these situations where you have an independent consultant and then the party wants to bring in the party people,
Mm-hmm.
if those two groups can really come together and work together,
Mm-hmm.
maintain that movement mentality that they were establishing, maintain that, and then do things in addition the way that the party likes to do them. So the party likes to do television advertising, and they
Mm-hmm.
like to
Yeah.
do a lot more direct mail and spend a
Yeah.
lot more money. If you can
Yeah.
bring both of those things together, then you've really got energy, and I think you can really win. And I think that can absolutely be a good thing. And we have to learn how to do that better. We have to get
Okay.
better at, uh, at the party being responsive to progressive candidates who are reaching
Yeah.
out for help, because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And campaigns need to be open to uh, uh, bringing these elements together in a way that doesn't sap the energy out of the campaign, because
100%.
that's the big worry that I have, is that you can deflate your volunteers and deflate your staff if they feel
Yeah.
like, oh, they don't like our work or whatever.
Wow. Brooke, I love this conversation. Oh man, you're going to be my go-to person when I have questions with
Awesome.
with you know, the consultations, and I would love to actually do another show with you where we just talk about, because I always have ideas and I don't know how realistic they are. So I would love to like throw all these ideas at you and say, hey, how would this work in the field and things like that. So that would be fun. So for example,
Yeah.
Reverend Warnock is about to run again, or he just got elected, but he's about to run. And you know what? I'll give another example. Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, he lost, right? But I was
Mhm.
thinking he raised so much money, you know, because everybody wanted to get rid of Lindsey Graham. I don't know exactly what he did with that money, but I was like, if I was him, I would try to find the volunteers, the super supporters, and hire them in all the different areas of South Carolina, and just do like almost like a jobs program, right? Where instead of using, because a lot of time money gets eaten up with TV advertisements, right? Because you're paying for
Yep.
the TV ads, and then the person who purchases the TV ad, they get 10% of that, so they're encouraged to like buy TV ads. I think it could be a waste a lot of time. So cut back on the TV budget, use like $5 million to just hire 500 or whatever, $15 an hour minimum wage jobs. These are good paying jobs in a place where they might be hurting. Who wouldn't love you after hiring you and giving you that money? That's an idea. I was like, why didn't he do that and have them go out door knock, and what you think about
Well,
that?
and you're singing my song right there,
Mm-hmm.
because what you're doing when you invest in that kind of field campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and those field assets,
Mm-hmm.
you are you're teaching a whole new generation of people how to do this work.
Yeah.
And we really need that. We don't have a bench the way that we should
Yes.
within the party, and as progressives, we need more people to learn how to do this, and we need more people getting involved. And what you just mentioned, developing, and Jamie's going to be at the DNC now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love it if what he did at the DNC would be to develop a massive campaign in states like South Carolina. I would love to see it in Mississippi. We have a chance in Mississippi like we never had before. It's just weird. And recommit into Florida. We went red in 2020, shouldn't have gone red. Of course, we need to improve. And the way you do that is you get people on the ground, you teach them the work, and then you let them go, go do it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. Brook, please talk about, you also have a show that you do, and then you have a story coming up that I want you to touch on also, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Cool. So every Sunday I drop a podcast called Progressive News Network. And this is a collaboration between myself I'm
sorry, Brooke, continue talking. I'm going to go grab my kids off the bus. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
This is a collaboration between myself and an older activist who pretty much passed the show down to me. His name is Rick Spizak, and he did PNN as the primary producer for 10 years. And I came in a couple of years ago and started subbing, and he handed the show down to me. So, and then we brought in another great reporter whose name is Janine Moloff, who does the Justice Report. She reports on all things having to do with civil rights and the law and justice issues. So we do that every Sunday. That drops, and it's pretty much on anywhere you're going to have a podcast drop. I go through Anchor, which then distributes to 6 different podcatchers, everything but SoundCloud, I think. It I have a story coming up that is very tangential, it relates to what we've been talking about here. And it's me and a team of researchers, and we're looking into automated, I guess you would call it like automated social media behaviors. We are looking at the way that political speech is happening on social media in ways that are authentic and organic versus ways that are inauthentic and not so organic. And so look for that. We should be dropping that in the next 2 weeks, something like that, maybe in the next week.
Yeah.
And that will kick off our video presence. So we'll be dropping that on YouTube. We will, because it's going to have a lot of visuals with it. So it won't be something that can just work on a pod.
Awesome. So I'm so looking forward to having you come back on the show after you drop that information. I'm sure I'm going to have questions about that. Just talking to you made me think of like another time to bring you on, like I said, and we just talk strategy. I love talking, just gaming ideas and all that good stuff. And try to hopefully, this is a progressive show. You're a progressive person. This is all about pushing the progressive movement. And, we have a unique, we're unique in the sense that we're grassroots. So we have to be creative because we don't have a lot of money, but we might have people, the hope is to build up the people power and not have to worry about too much money. So that's where we got to strategize and build the coalition and get that going. Thank you so much, Brooke, for coming on the show. And, I look forward to having you on again. And anyone, please, if you are running for office, reach out to Brooke. She's on Twitter. Can you say your Twitter account?
It's at Nashville_Brooke. Or I'm there under my name, Brook Hines.
Brook Hines, just look her up. And we want to support our progressive consultants. And all right, and that's it. Alan Amberster, thank you so much for coming out. We have a couple other people that's in the chat. I don't know how to pronounce that. Fest and Cho. All right. Much love to everybody. Thank you for coming out.